Hey everybody, Syntax77 here, kicking it old school today with a little classic tabletop gear review video. What I'm looking at today is the Olight S1 Mini Baton flashlight. Now this was sent to me for review by Olight, and I've been using it for around several weeks now, perhaps going on a month, 3 weeks maybe. And just to let you know kind of my usage and background, I'm the type of person I carry a flashlight every day. And I also do backpacking and camping trips, both in winter and three-season situations. So that is exactly how I have been using this flashlight. In fact, I have been using this as my everyday carry flashlight for, like I said, several weeks now, with the exception of maybe 1 or 2 days that I switched it up and used a different flashlight. This is the only flashlight that I have been using. I really wanted to put it through its paces. I also took it out on 2 winter backpacking trips so far. One trip down to around 15 degrees, and the other one was in sub-zero temps. So throughout this video, I will go through my experiences using this light for everyday carry as well as camping, and we'll also get into how to use the various functions on the light for those of you who already may have purchased this light, or you're just really interested in how it works. So first things first, let's just take a look at the box, and we'll talk about the specs, because one of the cool things about this light is that it's actually 600 lumens output on turbo. Now that's turbo, so that means it runs for about a minute until it gets to the point where it feels that it might be getting a bit overheated, and then it'll shut down, or actually step down rather, to high mode and continue to run like that. Once it cools down, you can put it back in turbo and use it for another burst. Now high mode, speaking of that, is actually quite powerful still. It's 330 lumens, and you can get around an hour, 60 minutes of usage out of that. And it also has a medium mode at 60 lumens, 6-hour runtime, and a low mode, 15 lumens with 30 hours. And personally, I've actually used this light the most on the low mode, so we'll talk about that in a little bit. And then it also does a moonlight mode, and that's a half lumens, just a little bit of light once your eyes are adjusted out there in the dark, especially when you're camping and whatnot. It's actually a lot more light than you'd think, and because of that low output in lumens, it actually would run for 15 days. Now, I did not personally test that, but from my experience testing other Olight models, I can tell you that these are usually fairly accurate numbers, and that moonlight mode seriously does feel like it runs forever. Battery type in here we're going to look at. It is an RCR123A battery. It does come with one, and that is USB rechargeable. You actually take the battery out and charge it. And if you want to really nerd out on all the full stats, I will put those in the video description, as well as links to the official Olight store and Amazon. You can check out the stats there as well, and features on paper. But let's look at the actual light now, shall we? As you can see right here, it's very small. Let's just put it in the palm of my hand to really show it off. Yeah, it's about 3 finger widths long, just to give you some scale. Like I said, if you want the real stats, go ahead and look in the video description. But it is a tiny guy, and it only weighs 1.5 ounces with the battery. That's pretty awesome. You see it has this lanyard on here that came with it. I put that on there. I like that. It's nice because this guy is so small. I actually had somebody chime in when I mentioned this on another video. They said they had one and they loved it, but they did drop it down the side of a mountain. If you're in a situation where you think you might drop it, the lanyard's pretty nice because you can just put it on, pull this down to cinch it, and now it's secure on your wrist. It's not going anywhere if you're doing something where you think you might drop it and not be able to recover it. And there's my thumb falling right on the button there to turn it on. It's just one click and it turns on. And if I hold it down, it's going to cycle through the modes: medium, low, high, medium, low, high. It also has a timer feature on it. I might as well mention that now. I have not really used that, but it'll do a 3-minute or a 9-minute timer. And to access that, you just turn it on, and I'll go to low. And you're going to do a double click, but hold. And it blinked twice. So that is the longer timer for 9 minutes. If I do that again, that's 1 blink, so it would run for 3 minutes and then automatically shut off. Personally, I haven't really used that. I'm sure there's usages and reasons for that out there. Maybe some of my viewers who are often more clever than I can chime in and let me know what some of those reasons for using that would be. But that is a feature it has. It does do, let me just take that off there. It does do a strobe as well with 3 clicks. There you go. My camera's probably going crazy now, and I'll turn that off. And also there is, of course, turbo mode, which, like I said, is a whopping 600 lumens, and you just double click, but don't hold to access that. And there it is at full turbo. And if I turn it off and then turn it back on, it won't go to turbo, but it will go back to high. It does have a memory on it, so whatever you turn it off in, it will return to. For instance, let's put it back to low. If I turn it off, turn it back on, it's still in low, and that works for all the different modes. So that is nice if you have a particular mode you like to use, which, like I said, I usually just use low. It gives me a ton of battery runtime, and it's still a decent amount of light for most everyday kind of situations, just looking underneath of something for an object, etc. Speaking of which, it is magnetic on the end here. And this actually came in handy as I've been testing this thing, my garage door opener. The gear stripped on the inside. That's a whole nother story. But the point is, I had this in my pocket and I remembered that it's magnetic. I was able to stick it right to the side of the garage door opener while I was in there inspecting the damage. And it made it really easy. So any type of situation where you have a metallic surface, you can stick this to it. So in work conditions, that can be really handy. And then, of course, it does have the pocket clip on there too. And that is dual-sided, so you can either slip it down like right there, or on the other end, you see it opens there as well. So the choice is yours. I've been carrying it with the lens side up, because I find this end is a little easier to get in my back pocket. Although, to be honest, I do find that because it's so short, the pocket clip runs the entire length of it, right? That can make it a little tricky to get it in a back pocket quickly. Now, I'm nitpicking here, but I'm the type of person, like I said, that carries a flashlight every day, and I take it in and out quite often. I like it to be quick and easy. So with this setup, because there isn't really a lead running up to it, when I go to put it in my back pocket, you're going to find you have to work a little bit more just to get it in there. It's not quite as fast. Now, I guess a possible solution to that for a future model might be to make this clip just a little bit shorter, so that you can kind of get a little lead before it hits the clip on your pocket. But that being said, the thing's already so tiny that I'm sure Olight has done that for a reason and doesn't want to make the pocket clip too small, because then you're going to have less purchase. So anyway, a lot of you, I'm sure, carrying a light this small, and I've experimented with it as well, you might just be throwing it in a pocket. And that's fine. That makes perfect sense. And in that case, you won't have to worry about that. In fact, you could actually just take the clip off if you want, just like that, and store that somewhere safe, and you're good to go. And there goes the lanyard too. So now it's just all by its lonesome. But I'll go ahead and put that back on. And there's a groove there, so it won't spin. It's got that groove that just goes around, say, 3/4 of the way, and it locks in pretty good. That's kind of cool, at least in my opinion, because that means that on some flashlights, when that spins around, you lose orientation. Now, it doesn't really matter so much if your light actuating switch is on the tail cap, but in this case, it's on the side. So what that means is you always know that wherever this clip is, exactly on the opposite side is going to be your switch to turn it on. So you'll start to get some muscle memory on that. Now, one thing I will say as well, and again, this thing is super tiny, so considering that, the ergos are pretty darn nice. But I do find, and I'm getting better at it, but I did find that getting to that switch, finding it quickly, can be a little slow because I can't really feel it that well. But again, like I said, once you learn where that clip is, you start to just feel it. But it would be cool if this was raised just a little bit more, but I've been carrying it for a few weeks. I bet you after a few months, I would be hitting this thing with no problem whatsoever. Wouldn't even be thinking twice about it. We'll get a little bit of a closer look here, and you can see that pattern on there that gives you a little bit of grip, which is nice. And the whole thing is aircraft aluminum. There's no plastic pieces on here other than, the rubber button, which isn't plastic, but you know what I'm saying. And you can also get a look right now at the LED end of the light. Got a nice smooth reflector in there. This thing throws a pretty, I would say, a combination of like a flood and a spot. It's pretty wide. It's not super floody, but it's definitely not like a pinpoint flashlight beam either. It's a nice combination. I found it nice for camp, which, speaking of that, I did have somebody say on a previous video when I mentioned I was going to take this on some winter camping trips, they said they were a little skeptical of how that battery, that small battery in there, would hold up in cold temps, because cold temps will definitely mess up your run times. They will not run as long in super cold temps. Well, I purposely, on that trip where it went down into the teens, as soon as it got a hint of darkness, I turned this guy on low, and I purposely left it on low for the entire night. on low. Now again, it says it runs for 30, so that's nowhere near the max, but it had no problem whatsoever. And then I continued to use it the next day, and I didn't bother recharging it. I kept carrying it, everyday carry, at home, around town, and whatnot, and it did not die. In fact, I just went ahead and recharged it after a few days or so just to get it topped off. But that temperature range did not hurt it at all. And then when I wasn't in low, there were a few times that I was even putting it in turbo and high, etc., just to play with it. Now, on my next trip up to New Hampshire, it was sub-zero, and I used this guy in a variety of modes, and it worked just fine. It did not conk out super quick or anything like that, and that was actually a 2-day trip with a temperature range of no higher than, I think, 22 degrees, and like I said, down below zero in the evenings. Now, another thing I found that is quite handy with this light for me personally, because it's so light and small, I can actually use this clip to clip it. In my case, I had this like ridiculous furry kind of Russian winter hat that I took on my recent trips. And what I did was I just clipped this right to it, and it basically turned it into a headlamp. I didn't even feel it there. Obviously, it pointed at whatever I was looking at because it was clipped right to my hat, and I ran it like a headlamp. So that was pretty nice. I'd say, honestly, I've had several Olights now. I really do like them as a brand. That's why I have a tendency to say yes when they want to send me something for trial. This one here, probably my favorite Olight yet. It's not the fanciest one, it's not the brightest one, but it's versatile and small. I like that. When I carry it in everyday carry, just around home and town and whatnot, you can barely tell it's there. And when I'm backpacking, I get a little uptight about the weight sometimes, and this guy doesn't put a dent in my gear weight at all at 1.5 ounces. And like I said, it's also USB rechargeable, so let's screw the cap off and take a look at that right now. Take that off, pop it out. You will see next to that USB symbol there, actually has a mini USB port right there, and you plug it right into it, right on the battery. Pretty cool. So I'm just going to take a standard cell phone cable that you would have for like any Android device, and if I now look at it, it's a little bright in here, but there we go. Hopefully you can see that. It is lit up red, indicating that it is charging, and it'll eventually turn green to let you know that it's done charging. So I just do that overnight, like I said, occasionally, depending on your usage, and you're good to go again. Unplug it, pop it back in with the positive side up. There's actually a little underneath there, a little reminder about which way it goes. I actually did that backwards once by accident on video, didn't even realize it for one of the scenes, and somebody gave me some crap about it. But to be honest, people, all of these Olights, most modern flashlights, you don't have to worry about that. They have circuitry built in there that won't allow you to damage the flashlight if you put it in upside down. It just won't turn on. But there you go. I did it right that time. So there you have it. I think that pretty much covers it. I have been quite happy with this. I don't usually need 600 lumens, but when you do, it is really awesome to have it available. And this guy right here will do just that. And if you don't need that much juice, which usually I don't, then you get a ton of runtime, considering how small this guy is. Now, as of right now, it is my personal favorite out of the Olight lights. Actually, it might be my favorite all-around light in general right now. Although I do like a traditional pen light that is this long, kind of skinny form factor. That is nice, especially in like dressier clothes. But for just wearing jeans, throwing it in your pocket or a jacket, it's awesome. I like it, and I like the versatility for, like I said before, those camping trips as well as handiwork around the house with that magnetic end. So I'm quite happy with this. If you want more information on it, like I mentioned before, there are links for both Amazon and direct to Olight in the video description. And using those links is a great way to support this channel and future videos if you like this content. And that's about it. That's the Olight S1 Mini Baton. Till next time, I'm Syntax77, and you have fun out there.